Okay, I'm going to try this one more time. It's taken me 3 times to try to record this video, but what I want to do is debrief that third problem-solving problem. I'm sure you've seen it by now, but it's this one about Frank being out in the rain, and his clothes were soaked, but not a hair on his head got wet. How could this happen? I didn't have see a lot of issues with people understanding the problem, except for a couple people who just missed that he didn't have a hat, or that his clothes were soaked, or that he didn't have an umbrella. Those types of things. The heuristic I used was thinking outside the box as a conclusion to list possible solutions. So I've got the video posted on that you can check out. The most common heuristic I saw was also list possible solutions. For example, solution 1, Frank is bald. Solution 2, Jack used a jacket to cover his head. Solution 3, Frank was walking under an overhang and a car drove by a puddle and splashed him. Here's another list. Bald, had a newspaper over his head, clothes were already wet and he got inside before his hair got wet. He got home as it started to rain and he forgot his drying clothes on the line outside. I really like that one. His hair had been waterproofed. He put his clothes over his head as cover. Here we've got Frank is bald, no hair like Mr. Magoo, going through some possibilities. So here, could he have a hoodie? Was he wearing a mask? Oh, he had no hair. Walk under shelter. It wasn't raining where he was. He put his shirt over his head, or he's bald. Going through those possibilities. So making a list of possible solutions and then choosing the best one is a fine heuristic. Another heuristic, use resources outside of yourself. This student writes, I knew it was a riddle, and after I thought for a long time, I knew I wouldn't get it. My sister got it right away, which reminds me that she's more logical, or thinks more logically than I do. This isn't just using resources outside of yourself, it's also relating to a similar problem, because knowing that something's a riddle draws out all those other riddles that you've heard before. Relate the problem to a similar problem. This student says, a problem is similarly worded as another brain teaser I'd heard in the past. Okay, very good. Issues I noticed here. A lot of students weren't sure what heuristic they used. Some of them said they just thought about it and then they just knew the answer. Now, I'm guessing most of those students actually ran through some possible solutions. If you read this problem and you knew that Frank was bald and you knew there was no other solution, you probably should have stopped and said, wait, could there be another solution to this? Did I check all the possibilities? A lot of students told me they heard something before. Relate to a similar problem is one of our strongest heuristics because it is easier to solve a problem we've seen before. So if you knew this was a riddle, you're already on your way to relating this to other problems. What if I Googled the answer? That's using outside resources. That's your heuristic. I had one student say, they were bald. They don't get their hair wet when they're out in the rain. So that's relating it to a similar problem or acting it out or using personal experience to solve that riddle, solve that problem. Other issues I noticed, I got a lot of papers with no work on it. If you listed solutions, list some of those solutions. If you used a similar problem, stating that similar problem would be your work there. The other thing I saw was a lot of papers with only justification as to why their answer was correct. Well, that's a fine part of work. It doesn't really show me how you got there. Okay, so it didn't show me your process. So as you do your work, if you've got a solution, you've got your justification, go back and figure out how you did it and include some of that reasoning, just a little bit, along with your justification makes for a solid answer, solid work and answer. Always, can you check the result? Does the result make sense? Can you check the argument? Can you derive the result a different way? Can you see the solution at a glance? Here, if you made a list, did you think to try Googling it? If you asked your sister, did you try to make a list of other possibilities? Could you use this result or method on other problems? Have you learned anything? I'm quite good at riddles like this, I think. And it's not because I'm really smart or clever. It's because I've heard so many riddles before, I can relate them to ones I've already heard and remember the solutions to. Remember, it's hard to solve new problems. It's much easier to solve problems like one you've heard before. And then note, this can work against you. This happens to students. This happens to me sometimes where I get stuck in the, gosh, I feel like I've heard this. If only I could remember the solution. But then you spend all of your energy trying to remember. Trying to remember is a bad problem-solving strategy. A better one would be to say, okay, maybe it will come to me, but what can I do to get my hands on this problem now? Could I make a list? Could I Google it? Could I do those things? So sometimes we waste our time just trying to remember a solution. Here's a couple riddles or problems similar to the one we had. A black dog stands in the middle of an intersection in a town painted black. None of the streetlights are working due to a power failure caused by an ongoing storm. A car with 2 broken headlights drives toward the dog but turns in time to avoid it. How could the driver have seen the dog in time? Okay, here's another one. Charlie Chromedome went out for a walk without an umbrella. He did not wear a hat and he did not take refuge under a shelter, yet not one hair on his head got wet. How was this possible? Okay, so those riddles are of the same ilk in my mind as the one we solved. So again, popular problem-solving techniques, listing out possible solutions and choosing the best one, or using outside resources. Or if you've seen a riddle similar to this, which you now have, can you use the techniques you used to solve that? Riddles can be fun, but don't forget about heuristics and don't forget to think about how you solve them, how you're actually getting your solutions.